This is the Friday, May 29, 2020 version of the Market Plus segment. Joining us now, our friend Angie Setzer from Michigan. You know, at some point, I am going to see you in person, right? Someday?
Eventually.
Someday.
Yeah.
Right?
Someday.
Someday.
Flights are cheap.
They are. You know, but it's good that we've been having discussions. You and I talked here a couple of weeks ago about mental health, and we're going to get into that at the end of this discussion. I want to start, though, with the dairy industry, and I've got a whole bunch of questions about exact details on things, Angie. No, this dairy market, you know, we've been telling the story about the struggles that they've been having, and then 6 weeks in a row, it seems, we've been rallying higher. What's happening?
Yeah, I think, every market can only go down for so long, right, before it starts to pick something up. And dairy had been in a pretty solid downslope prior to the whole COVID thing. It just kind of accelerated as we went forward. And so, I think for one, we've recognized that, or we've transitioned our supply line and our supply capabilities into a way that we can kind of support that home consumption of dairy products and things like that. We are seeing these restaurants open back up. We are trying to get back to normal, whatever that may mean. And so I think that that's going to keep some support under this thing. On top of that, when you're feeling emotionally insecure, what better, to do than eat a block of cheese?
Right. I don't know of a better way to do it. That's a very good way to do it.
How I cope.
Right, exactly. You're doing your part. The cotton market, another one of those that I'm not saying mirrors the dairy market in no way, shape, or form, but in the sense that it had been declined for a little while. Now we've seen a rally. Last couple of weeks going side to side. I think you're going to tell me it's something to do with exports.
We've seen, the exports have been, they've remained pretty solid. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a cotton expert by any means, kind of like dairy. I'm just a consumer. But we've seen solid demand on that side of things for the most part. I think better than anticipated, at least higher than USDA numbers. So if you were just using USDA numbers and you were looking at what we were actually seeing from an overall sales standpoint, you'd be relatively impressed with that level of demand. Not to mention the fact that, if you're looking at West Texas dryland cotton acres, they're struggling. I've got a friend that I communicate with that manages some farms in that neck of the woods. And he says at this point in time, seed's just sitting there waiting to get a rain, and there's nothing in the forecast for it, and we're looking at above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation as the newly released, 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlook for that neck of the woods. So I think production wise, not to mention the fact that we've been way too wet in the Delta production areas for some of these folks to be able to get cotton in and be happy with it. So I think, from a production standpoint, we could be seeing some weather impacts. And then from a demand standpoint, like I was saying, it seems the export demand's been a bit better than anticipated.
We've exported some of the tweets that were sent to you and me about the show, and we had a couple people ask questions. Rod in Southeast Minnesota was asking, I've already put you on point about the first part of his question. Where are your price targets to start marketing 2020 corn and soybeans? I kind of pinned you on corn. I didn't get a chance to on beans. Where are you making a sale right now for 2020?
I've been of the mindset that we're too cheap. I've felt beans are too cheap. Now, I don't know if it's going to take us getting to the acreage report, where I don't anticipate to see this significant increase in acres like some folks are thinking we're going to get, or if it's going to take us getting to where we feel more confident in the fact that China is going to come in and actually buy soybeans. That's been our problem, is that we just constantly have this fear looming over top of us that China's not going to make any purchases whatsoever. And so I feel soybeans, are going to have an opportunity above $9 futures, and that should be a sale at that point.
Okay. Well, speaking of China buying, as Craig in Minnesota is asking, why is China buying corn? I was going to ask you the same thing. Why?
Right. Well, they need it. I think we had this idea that government stockpiles were 11 billion bushels or whatever the last number was that the USDA put out. But we all knew that their demand, their feed demand, their ethanol usage, all of these things, and not to mention the fact that their stocks are a million years old and probably of questionable quality. We saw their auction sale this week. They had 4 million metric ton offered, which is a relatively solid amount of corn. And that was all sold which is, it's been a while since we've seen like all of the government sales made. 2015 crop, so vintage 2015 crop at an average price of $6.26 a bushel. So they need something to kind of blend that with. And I think, part of the phase one trade deal, is that they're going to be importing some products, and corn happens to be the one that's cheap at this point in time and plentiful.
But they don't normally buy from us on corn, and that's considered a good sign. But then we start talking tough, and many people I've talked to many people that say they're fine with poking China in the eye. They've been unfair to the United States for years. This is a good thing, but why do you want to negotiate with someone that does poke you in the eye? Is it because the other way hasn't worked before? This is the strategy that we think might work?
I guess. I mean, it's hard. That's what's going to weigh heavy on the market as we move ahead, is that you're going to continue to have this risk premium to the downside. It's not, we always talk about risk premium, right, as a positive number that you have to put into play at the head of a production season. But, right now, until we feel comfortable that the relationship is going to be corrected and whatever that means. I mean, we go back to the new normal conversation, right? What is the post trade war relationship with China look like? Short term wise, there's a lot of people that think they're going to need us, and I agree. I think you'll see significant soybean sales made to China over the next year. I think you see them specifically ramp up in the third and fourth quarter the fourth quarter and the first quarter of the marketing year, perhaps the last half of the third quarter of the marketing year. So June, forward kind of deal. I think you see those sales happen and really pick up because they need us. Like I said, we've seen these pork imports big time. I mean, China is coming in and buying. They're just not, I don't know what we anticipated. If they were going to come in and make the purchase on a random Tuesday and meet the phase one trade deal requirements or what. But, at this point in time, that's the hardest part is right now is that you can go home on a Tuesday and be like, okay, things are good. China bought, we're working our way towards something, yada, yada, yada. And then you get a tweet or you get some sort of news story or something like that on Wednesday. And next thing you know, we're down 25 cents. And so it's hard to get folks to come in and go long when they're constantly Charlie Brown in the football. And that's where we're at right now.
I've heard that one before. And there's also, that's a great transition to the next question from Paul in Wisconsin. Maybe not Charlie Brown exactly, but what will lure fund buying into the grain markets? We seem to be short players.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, we've got to have a reason to show the funds that if they come in and buy, it's going to be a worthy investment. I mean, let's be honest here. The last several times that we've lured the funds in, it has been Charlie Brown in the football. Last year they were all but convinced that we were going to $5 or $6 in corn, and if you're still holding that long, you're definitely exceptionally sad. So, I think it's going to be a weather event. But a weather event's going to be more, it's going to take more than just what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Right, because we've proven no matter how much rain it happens, A, we get the crop in, and B, we get trendline yields.
Right. And I mean, we've said that the crop was a disaster almost 5 years running now. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where folks are like, yeah, okay. It's almost going to take pictures of pineapple fields on MSNBC, I think, to convince some of these folks that things are real bad. But
send your tweets to @goddessofgrain with pineapples in the field. My way. All right.
But I mean, the reality is it's going to have to be a big weather issue. It can't just be it's a little hot with only a half inch of rain in Iowa in the next couple weeks kind of deal. That's not going to do it.
All right. Well, we have seen this trend, this change in strategy where we plant beans first. Kelly in Primgar, Iowa was asking, with all the promotion of how much better early planted beans are and several farmers planting beans first, how will this affect acres in an unprecedented year?
Well, I think it could have an impact. I think, if you've got the beans in, you're probably pretty happy. I think it depends on, how do they make it through that mid 20, upper 20 degree temperatures too? Have they emerged yet or not? So, to me, I don't think it made a big difference. I think we've seen the I think we saw the idea, I think it goes back to intentions. We knew what we were getting into with the intentions report on that side. So I don't think you're going to see a huge swing in soybean acres because some folks are pushing to plant them a little early. I
Okay.
don't know if it'll have a huge impact.
All right, we talked a little bit about ethanol, and I just want to ask you a more specific question here, and that is, I got to find it here on my sheet. How much, Bradley's asking in Upland, Nebraska, how much longer will it take for ethanol production to normalize? That's the key word, normalize. Let's just say how much before we get to 95% of what we were doing?
I mean, 95% of what we were doing pre-COVID was too much still without some sort of significant ethanol export market. And that's the unfortunate reality. Ethanol has not been in a good place since about December. So let's call a spade
Right.
here, we have been overproducing. We're back to reasonable levels, with 61% or something of that nature. We've seen gasoline demand kind of come back. I guess you would call it a reverse square root sort of situation. We haven't had the hockey stick that everyone was afraid of, or God forbid the L. We started with a bit, it's more of a check mark, and now it's just a straight line. And so we really got to look at what gasoline demand, is. I mean, you're hearing several stories. I mean, just recently in what Mason City, an insurance company announced that there's like 6,000 employees that they have, that they're mostly all going to be working from home from now on. There's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to recognize that they can get a reasonably high level of performance from folks without having to have this brick and mortar building over their head. So what does that do for gasoline demand? And that's what we're seeing right now is that folks aren't necessarily driving throughout the week more. They are driving more on the weekend.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that same thing. We might be more apt to get out of the house and go do something.
Exactly. Which, if anyone's worked from home, that's what by Friday night, you're itching to just go to the grocery store if you can. So, right. I mean, that makes sense.
Let's finish up one last thing. We talked a couple of weeks ago in this same format. You were part of a panel we did on mental health, and I know you had one last week as well. As you've had time to kind of pull back and reflect a little bit, I know you shared with me an incredibly emotional story about someone financially in trouble. Did you hear more stories like that? Or did you get other feedback? I mean, have you been busy responding to people?
I've been really working to try, if anyone's reaching out, I've been trying to respond. I unfortunately feel like I am unable to respond. I don't know what to say. I'm always one of those people that I don't know what to do with my hands. So it has pushed me to try to take more courses when it comes to like a mental health first responder. So I know how to interact with someone when they do reach out. But I have had plenty of folks, and I really want people to feel like they can reach out, because I think sometimes if you do feel like you're struggling, just to ask more questions. If you're not getting the answers from the people that you're doing business with, reach out. Send me a message or shoot me an email or whatever, and I can connect you with someone that can help you in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not just talking from a counseling standpoint. I'm talking from a marketing standpoint, a banker standpoint. Some of these programs that have been offered by the SBA are very suitable for farmers. The EIDL loans, things like that. And so I think there's a lot of resources out there, to help folks through some of these trying times, whether it's just someone to talk to, someone to vent to, someone to, just basically say, hey, this stinks, and move on, sort of deal, whatever it is, we're here to help. And so I think that's been the best part about it, is just knowing that there are people out there, that have traditionally been stoic, or have been taught to kind of just compress that sort of emotion, or believe that that's totally normal, that I'm this way, my dad was this way, and my grandpa was this way, this is how we are. And it's like, well, it's really because it's a coping mechanism. Yeah. And you can do some other things differently. And so it's been eye-opening and rewarding, and I hope that I can continue to help whoever is looking to reach out.
Yeah. All right, this is my signal. Goodbye.
Great.
Good to see you. Thank you so much,
Good
Angie Setzer. Good to have her on the program. Thank you. That will do it for Market Plus. Next week, we'll be back to examine the return of the ethanol crush. And John Roach will analyze the markets. I'm Paul Yeager. Thank you so very much for watching, listening, or reading. Have a great week.